David Hogg is sitting next to me. He's the co-founder of March for Our Lives and LeadersWeDeserve.com, the new gig, and Parkland survivor and all that. You know, I think everybody knows your background. I hope, anyway. It's just the noble, extraordinary public service and work that you've been doing. David, it's great having you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. I've been following your work for years now and just so impressed by it. So tell us about Leaders We Deserve.
So Leaders We Deserve is an organization that really goes back to the early days of what I did with my classmates after Parkland. After Parkland, a friend of mine, or now friend of mine, Maxwell Frost, reached out and he said, hey, I'd love to help you organize, because Maxwell had been organizing against gun violence since after Sandy Hook. That happened when he was 15 years old. He helped us organize and show up at our state capitol and do different rallies around the state. We were able to pass gun laws in part because of his help. And I ended up hiring him my freshman year from my dorm room in college to be March for Our Lives National Organizing Director. And that was a great hire, except for the fact that just about 2 years later, he called me up and said, David, I have good news and I have bad news. Good news is I'm running for Congress, but the bad news is I have to leave March for Our Lives to do that. And I said, Maxwell, you know you're 24 years old, right? You need to be 25 to be elected to Congress. And he said, yes, I'll be old enough by the time that I'm elected. So I said, you know, I'd never really supported a politician before, because after Parkland, it just felt like so many people were trying to take advantage of us, you know, for their own political gain. And I didn't see Maxwell as a politician. I saw him as a friend. And I've seen him deliver over and over. So I did everything I could to support him. And he ended up winning his race by 10 points, becoming the youngest member of Congress at the age of 25 years old.
And he was driving an Uber car?
Yeah. So, you know, he had a lot of challenges when you run for office as a young person. One, I had to help him raise nearly $400,000 in his first 2 quarters. And he had to Uber drive every night while he was running for Congress, from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. every night.
Just to pay his own rent.
Exactly. And afterwards, Maxwell's first bill he introduced was to create the Office of Gun Violence Prevention at the White House to help coordinate the federal government's response to gun violence. And less than a year after he was elected, I got to see Maxwell Frost, you know, my friend that I had hired from my freshman dorm room in college, introduce the President of the United States in the Rose Garden to announce the creation of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention at the White House.
Wow.
And in that moment, I looked back and I thought, this is amazing, but there's so many more kids that marched with us in 2018 that walked out of their schools. We had millions of young people marching with us and walking out of their schools. There have to be 1,000 more people like Maxwell and so many other incredible leaders out there that just don't have the resources to get elected because they're young, because they're doubted. But if you look back at our history, there's one thing that FDR, Biden, LBJ, and even Lincoln have in common. They were all elected before they were 30. Not to the presidency, but to lower offices, obviously. And it just makes sense. If you start when you're young, you know how to get stuff done. So what I did is I talked to Maxwell's campaign manager, Kevin Latta, and together we created Leaders We Deserve, which is an organization that helps support young progressive Democrats running for state legislature in Congress to help get them elected. And we just launched it a year ago, and so far we elected the youngest person to the Virginia state legislature, the youngest to the Texas state senate, and our candidate in Virginia, he was able to kill a bill to arm teachers on the spot in committee because he secured a 1-seat majority for Democrats in Virginia. His name is Nadarius Clark. And he's one of the youngest people elected since Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, that's incredible.
So that's what we do at Leaders We Deserve.
So what's next?
So in terms of what's next, I'm going around the country right now. Currently, I'm obviously at the DNC with a lot of our younger candidates at the moment, but we have a lot of really competitive races in swing states around the country. So in Georgia, for example, we have a young candidate named Ashwin Ramaswamy. He's not related to Vivek. And he's running against, in the most competitive state Senate seat in that state, which is super important because there was a bill to expand health care benefits under ACA, but it died by 1 vote. And had that bill passed in the Senate, had there been that 1 more vote, had Ashwin been there, I think it was over 10 or 20,000 people would have gotten health care in Georgia. So we're supporting him and candidates like him all around the country, helping fund them, advise them on a day-to-day basis, and I go to their districts to help turn out young people and people of all ages. So that's what we do.
Are you getting support from the Institutional Democratic Party?
You know, a lot of the time those institutions are really focused, of course, on supporting the presidency, supporting, you know, a lot of other things. And I totally understand that. For us, what's really amazing about us is, you know, I hate the fact that we have a system where people are allowed to take corporate money. I think it's really corrupt and wrong.
You can thank 5 corrupt Republicans on the Supreme Court for that one.
It just really has bothered me. And so what we did at Leaders We Deserve was we said, all right, all of our candidates, they're not going to take corporate money, and we're not going to take corporate money either. And what's been really amazing about that is that we've had over 105,000 individual people donate to our organization
Wow.
to build us, and that's where the vast majority of our funding comes from. It's not from a lot of times it's a couple billionaires that just fund everything, and as convenient or nice as that would be, in our case, we have a grassroots donor base so that we're able to really just focus on helping our candidates that believe in doing things like passing gun safety, protecting abortion rights, and fighting climate change as well, and not taking corporate money.
Yeah, that's powerful, powerful stuff. We're talking with David Hogg, his new organization, LeadersWeDeserve.com. If you want to get over there, check it out, kick in a couple bucks and help out.
Feel free.
Yeah. Do you... Well, let's talk about the DNC.
Yeah.
I'm curious your thoughts on how we're 3 days into it. Tonight's the last night. What have been the things that have really elevated you or excited you, and what have been the things that maybe have disappointed you?
I think the things that have really elevated me is just the passion and the excitement. I think for 8 years, Americans, we've just had this sense of kind of sighing when we go to the ballot box.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, fine. I'm choosing the lesser of like two not great options, a lot of people feel like.
Right.
And for the first time, at least in the time since Parkland that I've been doing this, I really feel like people aren't just voting against somebody, but they're really excited to vote for someone.
Yeah.
Because Kamala Harris is such an incredible leader that is also so well qualified to be president of the United States. And also, it's just an incredible story. There is no other country in the world where her story and Tim Walz's story is possible, right?
Yeah.
The daughter of immigrants from California running for public office with a guy who was a teacher from Butte, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Teacher for 20 years.
Little town of 400 people.
There's in so many places around the world, those two people do not get along. They don't work together, right?
Yeah.
But in America, because we have such an incredible country where people have that opportunity, certainly not enough of it, but still have the opportunity in the first place, I think people are just really excited because, Donald Trump goes on and on about how we need to, quote unquote, make America great again. And I think it's important that we think about who is he actually talking about making it great for?
Right. Which again are we talking about?
Right, exactly. It's
1950s white men.
Yeah, exactly. It's very disturbing. But, when I see Tim Walz out there and Gus, his son, is just crying and saying, that's my dad.
Yeah.
Right? And hope is there.
Beautiful?
And it's so beautiful because he's such a genuine guy.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody knows a Tim Walz and they love him. And, Kamala Harris just offers an incredible opportunity to show what a country we are, where that change is possible. And I'm just really hopeful and excited, and it's an incredible feeling. And because, in part, we made a ton of progress on gun violence. We passed the first federal gun law in 30 years after Uvalde, and we've seen a historic decline in gun homicides since. It may not feel like it, because you're not going to hear about the shooting that doesn't happen, but we are making a lot of progress, and it's really remarkable.
It's a step.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not where we need to get.
We got a lot further to go.
Yeah, exactly. A lot further to go. What's your best advice speaking to people who are, older than you, much older than you, in fact, in many cases, about how to speak to young people about getting involved in politics?
I think a lot of it comes down to listening. I think so many people, and this doesn't just apply to young people, I think it applies to when we're talking to people across the aisle, people who may not agree with us. I do this a lot when I'm talking to, I was in the shooting club in college because I don't like just being around people who always agree with me. Mm-hmm. The job of an activist is to have uncomfortable conversations to make progress, right? And having those conversations, I realized so many people just want to be heard. And I think young people are no different at all. They don't want to be told how to think or that they should just be happy because X, Y, or Z things have been done. If young people aren't feeling happy, we need to listen to them and understand why they feel that way. And maybe they could be wrong. We explain why we think that they're wrong, but it's a respectful conversation, right? You would be upset if somebody told you how to feel right about something.
Sure.
Right? Young people are the same way. Just talking to them like adults and genuinely valuing and listening to what they have to say, I think, is the first step to doing that.
Yeah. And getting young people registered to vote?
Getting them registered to vote is super important, but we need to get them out to vote too.
Yeah.
That's really the key part. You can register everybody you want, but if you don't get them out to vote, that doesn't matter. So that's why I created Leaders We Deserve, to give young people somebody that they're excited to vote for, down ballot, around the country in swing districts, in swing states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, everywhere like that. And that's why I created LeadersWeDeserve.com, that people can find out more information.
There you go. LeadersWeDeserve.com. Check it out. David, thanks so much for dropping by.
Appreciate it.
Great meeting you.
Thank you.
And I hope you can come back again.
Yes, absolutely.
Anytime. The door is open to you.
Thank you, man.
Keep up the great work.